Have you ever had a moment where you felt a strong sense of déjà vu, like you've lived this exact second before? Or maybe you've lost your keys, searched everywhere, and then found them in a place you swear you already looked? What if these aren't just tricks of your mind? What if they're tiny glitches in reality, hints of other worlds existing right alongside our own? Today, we're diving deep into the mind-bending concept of parallel worlds and the scientific theories that suggest they might be more than just science fiction. Let's start with something you've probably heard of: the multiverse. It sounds like something straight out of a comic book, right? But it's a serious idea that has popped up in several areas of physics. One of the most famous versions comes from quantum mechanics, the super weird science of the very, very small. At the quantum level, particles like electrons don't just exist in one place at one time. They exist in a cloud of possibilities, a state called superposition. It's only when we measure them that they choose a single location or state. This is where the many worlds interpretation, proposed by a physicist named Hugh Everett III back in the 1950s, comes in. Everett suggested that the particle doesn't just choose one outcome. Instead, every single possible outcome happens, each in its own separate universe. So when you flip a coin, the universe splits. In one universe, it lands on heads. In another, identical universe, it lands on tails. Both outcomes are real. This means for every choice you've ever made, or even haven't made, there's a version of you out there living out the alternative. Think about it. There's a universe where you took that job you turned down, a universe where you moved to that city you always dreamed of, and a universe where you had cereal for breakfast instead of toast. This creates an infinite, ever-branching tree of universes, each one slightly different from the last. It's a staggering thought, isn't it? An infinite number of yous living an infinite number of lives. Another fascinating idea that points towards a multiverse is string theory. This is one of the leading candidates for a theory of everything, a single framework that can explain all the forces and particles in the universe. String theory proposes that the fundamental building blocks of reality aren't point-like particles, but tiny, vibrating, one-dimensional strings. Different vibrations of these strings give us different particles, like electrons or photons, much like different vibrations of a guitar string give us different musical notes. Now, for string theory to work mathematically, it requires the existence of extra dimensions beyond the 3 spatial dimensions we experience plus time. We're talking about maybe 10 or 11 dimensions in total. So, where are these extra dimensions? The theory suggests they are curled up, incredibly small, at every point in our space, so we can't perceive them. Here's where it gets really cool. In this higher dimensional space, our entire universe could be just one brain. Think of it like a giant sheet of paper floating in a larger room. String theory allows for the existence of other brains, other universes, floating parallel to our own in this higher dimensional space, which physicists call the bulk. These brain worlds could be just a tiny distance away from us in a 4th spatial dimension, yet completely invisible and inaccessible. Occasionally, gravity, which string theory suggests might be able to leak between brains, could cause these universes to interact. Some physicists even speculate that the Big Bang itself was caused by 2 of these brain worlds colliding. Then there's the theory of eternal inflation. Our universe began with the Big Bang, a moment of rapid expansion called inflation. The theory of eternal inflation suggests that this process of inflation might not have stopped everywhere at the same time. While it stopped in our patch of space, allowing our universe to form, it continues in other regions, constantly spawning new bubble universes. Imagine a giant pot of boiling water. Our universe is just one bubble that formed and cooled down. But all around it, the water is still boiling, creating countless other bubbles. Each of these bubble universes could have its own unique set of physical laws and constants. One might have stronger gravity, another might have different fundamental particles. Most of these universes would likely be completely inhospitable to life as we know it. But with an infinite number of bubbles, it's statistically likely that some, like ours, would have the perfect conditions for stars, planets, and eventually, us to exist. This idea helps explain why our universe seems so finely tuned for life. It's not that it was designed for us. We just happen to live in one of the bubbles where the conditions are right. We won the cosmic lottery. So, we have these incredible theories, but is there any actual proof? Well, that's the billion-dollar question. Finding direct evidence for other universes is incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible. But scientists are looking for clues. One potential piece of evidence could come from the cosmic microwave background, or CMB. This is the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, a sea of radiation that fills the entire universe. If our universe collided with another bubble universe in the distant past, it might have left a bruise on the CMB, a specific circular pattern or a cold spot that statistically unlikely to be random. In fact, scientists have found a few anomalies in the CMB, like the CMB cold spot, a region that is unusually large and cold. While it could just be a random fluctuation, some physicists have proposed it might be the signature of a collision with another universe. It's a long shot, but they're still analyzing the data. Another way to look for evidence is through gravity. As we mentioned with string theory, if gravity can leak between dimensions, we might be able to detect its effects. Experiments at places like the Large Hadron Collider are smashing particles together at incredible speeds. The hope is that during these collisions, some energy might disappear, seemingly violating the law of conservation of energy. This missing energy could have actually escaped into another dimension, carried away by a particle of gravity called a graviton. Finding this would be revolutionary, providing the first tangible proof of extra dimensions and, by extension, the multiverse. Let's bring it back to a more personal level. What about those strange everyday experiences we talked about? The Mandela effect, where large groups of people misremember the same detail from the past, or the feeling of déjà vu. Could these be psychological phenomena? Or are they fleeting moments where our consciousness briefly overlaps with a parallel version of ourselves? What if that lost object didn't just reappear, but you momentarily shifted into a universe where you hadn't misplaced it in the first place? Of course, these are purely speculative ideas, fun thought experiments more than scientific evidence. Our brains are incredibly complex and not always reliable. Memory is reconstructive, not a perfect recording, which can easily explain things like the Mandela effect. But it's still fascinating to think about the possibilities, to wonder if those little glitches in our daily lives are whispers from another reality. So do parallel worlds exist? The honest answer is we don't know for sure. But it's no longer just a fantasy. It's a plausible, and in some cases, a necessary consequence of our most advanced theories of the cosmos. From the branching realities of quantum mechanics to the floating brains of string theory and the bubble universes of eternal inflation, the idea that our universe is not alone is a powerful one. It expands our sense of what's possible and challenges our place in the cosmos. Maybe one day, we'll find that cosmic bruise or see that missing energy and know for sure. Until then, we can look up at the night sky and wonder, are we just one universe among an infinite sea of possibilities? It's a beautiful, humbling, and incredibly exciting thought. What do you think? Is the multiverse real? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theories and ideas. Thanks for joining me on this journey to the edge of reality. If you enjoyed this mind-bending topic, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of our universe. See you next time.